Hello and welcome to the Emma Stoners. This is the podcast where we're talking all things Emma Stone, where we're going for her entire filmography, ranking and reviewing as we go. I'm Cameron, and I'm joined by Emma Stone's number one fan, Awais. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. I'm living life, living la vida loca. How are you?
I'm great. I've got a fancy new chair. I'm going to be a little bit too much swinging around. I think that's going to be the issue. I was on a dining room chair for a long time.
Do you know what I've realised, right? I thought Emma Stone was beloved all across the world by everyone.
She is.
But I'm starting to find out that she seems to be quite divisive at the moment. At least amongst my friend group. We got into the topic of like Emma Stone the other day, and
as you do, bring it up in every conversation.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And
why wouldn't you?
And then, like half the group was like, "Oh yeah," and then the other half were like, "Really? She's good." And I was like, "Well, I have an Emma Stone podcast, so my opinions. That's my opinion on Emma Stone." I was just so surprised to learn that there are people out there.
Opinion.
Yeah. I mean, poor taste, of course.
It's bad taste. I would have to argue with anyone that said that.
Yeah. I did. I had to. I was like, come on, have you not seen Easy A? Crazy Stupid Love? La La Land? Yeah, although La La Land is a controversial film in my film group.
I didn't realise how controversial La La Land was.
The mainstream hate it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do not like La La Land at all. I got onto musical theatre TikTok and I was like scrolling through it and everyone was like, this is garbage movie, and it's like...
Do you remember when it showed on BBC Two, I think, at Christmas maybe a couple of years ago, and Twitter was a wildfire. Everyone was raging at the fact that they were showing La La Land. Which is, I'm just very surprised to learn these things.
I love that movie. I can't wait to talk about it. We're planning something a bit special for La La Land. It's not part of the usual stuff we're going to do, but we'll get to that when we get there. Only a couple of weeks to go for that. But shall we just get on with it? Shall we move on to the first movie?
Yes, let's do it.
So first up, we are talking about The Croods, which came out in 2013. It was directed by Kirk D'Amico and Chris Sanders, and it stars Nicolas Cage, Ryan Reynolds, Clark Duke, and of course, Emma Stone. Awais, could you tell me what happens in this movie, please?
Yeah, so the Croods are a family of cavemen, and the film is set sort of, during that era, and they find that their cave is destroyed, and so they basically set out on the hunt for a new cave, and they end up sort of in this fantastical sort of new world, and they meet a new person in their travels, which is Ryan Reynolds' guy, and he sort of opens their minds to new inventions and new ways of living, and the Croods find themselves maybe slowly drifting apart.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of this movie because it's very for the target audience. It's very for the kids. This is probably one of the more DreamWorks obviously don't do the dualness of don't do the duality of Pixar where it's for kids and adults. I feel like DreamWorks is more skewing towards kids all the time. You know what I mean? Like there's no extra bits for anyone over the age of 12. But
How to Train Your Dragon.
You don't agree. I'm not massive on The Croods. I watched it again for the first time in 7 years yesterday, and it just did not do it for me. I thought it was just quite boring.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it enough. I like DreamWorks. I think I am a big fan of the films. How to Train Your Dragon is one of my favorite trilogies. You've got films like Shrek and Megamind, which are all really good. I think their films are comfortable, and I feel like this is a film that's comfortable. It doesn't try to do much more, like some of their other films. It knows the formula, it plays the formula, and it does it perfectly fine. I agree with you. There's not loads in here that maybe appeals more to the sort of older demographic. Funnily enough, though, obviously we're not talking about this yet, but The Croods 2 has a few jokes in it, I noticed, that are sort of... There's a sex slave joke in The Croods 2.
I found The Croods 2... We'll obviously talk about this in a couple of weeks' time, but I found The Croods 2 much more enjoyable than I did than I did this one. I think this one is very of its time. You said this saved DreamWorks from
I was about to say, I wonder if maybe that's why they played it so safe.
Yeah.
Because it's a very sort of predictable story, very sort of colorful, very good cast that are all reliable, and we were sort of looking up this film, and it saved DreamWorks from bankruptcy. Their last, I think, 7 films prior to this didn't turn a profit. Rise of the Guardians broke even, but it didn't really turn a profit until not massive profits, not sort of enough to keep them going until this. And I believe if this film had failed, it would have sent the company into bankruptcy and possibly would have seen the end of DreamWorks. And so I wonder if maybe that's why it's just so... I wonder if maybe that's why it plays it so safe.
Yeah, I think that might be it. Probably one of the main reasons for it. It's very, very safe in that way, and I think... I don't know. I do appreciate the animation for the time is really quite solid. I think the animation looks really good.
Yeah.
I quite like the creature design of the fantastical creatures. They are. I disagree. They're all right. I think there's some good looking creatures.
I like the tiger.
Yeah. Tiger. Yeah. There's some that are atrocious, but I think some of the creature designs are actually pretty solid.
Yeah, I think for me that was one of the most glaring issues. Was it just? I know it's supposed to be a very fantastical world that they walk into, but I don't know, some of the creature designs, I was just like, nah, I'm not. It felt way too childish. I think that's when it sort of really played into its... And look, I get it, here we are sort of two, 20-somethings, criticizing the Croods for that.
It's a bit dodgy of us going like, the Croods plays the kids. Why is
how dare they? Yeah.
I will also say about looking like they're for kids. They actually held a competition for the Croods too. Yes. I only know that you might know this because you were watching. You've done cinema cleaning as well. Yeah. But at the end of Croods 2, they're like, here's all the designs that won the competition. For the Croods too, because they'd obviously ask kids to come and draw some creatures for the Croodimals, I believe they call them.
But I think that's what sort of... I mean, look at How to Train Your Dragon. The designs in that are all fantastic. I know that's maybe supposed to be a bit more grounded than the Croods. And even something like Rise of the Guardians, where they've got like a hench Easter Bunny, voiced by Hugh Jackman. Like, I think they can do character designs very well, which is maybe why I was so disappointed by the sort of creature designs in the Croods. Yeah,
it's a shame that it's just it is middle of the road. I thought some of them were quite good, but
but
it's annoying.
The voice cast, Nicolas Cage,
Nicolas Cage.
What?
It's a very obvious one to pull out. This must be one of his very few animated movies. I don't know how many ever he's done, but
I don't think he's done.
He's a perfect caveman. He's a perfect caveman.
I mean, look, he is fantastic. I have to say, the entire cast is really good. But Nicolas Cage, just because he's so distinctly Nicolas Cage,
Yeah.
And I think it's some of the dialogue and just some of the... He's really hamming it up and he's really having fun with it.
Yeah. For sure.
And his characters, he's like a very protective dad. Because his daughter is voiced by Emma Stone. And she falls in love with Ryan Reynolds' guy, and like he's wants to leave the pack, and so he's like a super overprotective dad. And I love that he just leans into it so hard, and it's just so funny. I think hearing some of just the lines and knowing it's Nicolas Cage.
That's the whole thing. He is very much playing Nicolas Cage, and it is very funny.
Yeah.
I do like the relationship between the father-daughter relationship thing. That is like the key point, the key kind of anchor of the story. And it's Ryan Reynolds also in this as well. Sort of semi-boyfriend.
This was his first animated role.
Yeah. Ryan Reynolds before he was really the Ryan Reynolds we know today. Before he did Deadpool, before he became Deadpool, because now Ryan Reynolds is just Deadpool and everything. So he was just Ryan Reynolds in this, which was interesting to see. He wasn't making a quip every 6 seconds.
So I know you just asked. This was This was Nicolas Cage's 5th time voice acting in a theatrically released film after Christmas Carol the movie in 2001, The Ant Bully in 2006, G-Force in 2009, and Astro Boy.
How could I forget?
How can you forget G-Force? How
we should do 35-minute movies presents Guinea Pigs and just do every Guinea Pigs in movies.
Just G-Force.
Who could forget G-Force?
Yeah, and we've not really touched upon Emma Stone, but this is her first proper voice role, because Marmaduke was just a tiny role, and she just has the voice for animated films. She really is able just to ham it up with her vocals, I think. And if you watch the behind the scenes, it's so expectedly Emma Stone. She's like doing hand actions, she's making weird, and I'm just like, it's just of course an animated film is perfect for her, and the character's great as well. I think Eep is one of the strongest parts of the Croods.
Yeah, well, it's her film. It's her.
For sure.
It's got to be one of the few times Emma Stone's really been leading lady so far as well. She is like the main character in this. You know what I mean? So it's nice to see that as well, and it's all kind of centers around her. It's and a big budget, massive returns for DreamWorks, like we said. I don't know. I have nothing really else to say about this, because I was so middle of the road on this. I've not really got any thoughts.
I get it. I'm the same. I enjoyed it. If we're talking ratings, I'd probably give it 3 out of 5. I think there's fun to be had with it. I think it's, if you're watching it, you're gonna have it. You're not gonna hate it. It's a good sort of well-made animated film. It plays into the formula, but I don't always think that's a bad thing. No, and it's not what I expected either, because I did go into it thinking it would be crap. I think
I'm gonna go 2. I think for me, that's kind of where I'm gonna lie. I think it's solid enough. It's very. You won't find a lot for you in this. I think 100%. Kids will love it. There's not a lot for you in particular, like adult person watching this movie.
Unless you're a child listening to this.
Unless you are a child watching this podcast, in which case,
watch the Croods.
You'd love it. But if adult person watching this podcast, I believe you will not find much to like in the Croods.
I think there are for sure other animated films that do this story better.
Yeah.
Essentially it's a fish out of water story.
Yeah.
And there are,
it's a bit of coming of age kind of stuff going in there as well.
There are so many more Pixar films that sort of deal with these exact same themes, but just in a more refreshing manner that feels more appealing to sort of all audiences. I think this doesn't have loads going for the older audiences.
Next up, we're talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which came out in 2014. It was directed by Mark Webb, stars the likes of Dane DeHaan, Andrew Garfield, other people, Sally Field, how could we forget? Lovely
Emma Stone.
And of course,
Emma
Stone. Jamie Foxx as well, yep, there you go. But of course, Emma Stone. I love this movie. Awais, what's the plot?
Oh no, controversial opinion. I also like it. The film. It's Spider-Man. It's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Sort of picks up where we left off after the first one. Peter Parker is really getting into the swing of being Spider-Man, and he's graduating and things are looking up. But then a couple new villains sort of enter the picture, because New York is put under siege by Oscorp, and it's up to Spider-Man to fight off Electro and Green Goblin and Rhino to save the day.
Yeah.
Rhino for about 5 minutes.
So the plot is quite convoluted. I will give you that.
It is. That's the very basic version of it.
Yeah, it's very much the fact that Sony saw this. This was, if you go back to 2014, Sony were looking at the Marvel Cinematic Universe and they were going, "Fuck, we are fucked."
Yeah. That was when it was in the hype phase 2.
Yes, this was phase 2. It was just kicking off. I had Iron Man 3 the year before, Guardians and Captain America: Winter Soldier were coming out the year this came out. This was a packed year. This was a great year for comic book movies.
Yeah.
You had Days of Future Past as well. You had all that, all that.
Winter Soldier. It's fantastic.
So yeah, it was a fantastic year, and this came out and was like, we need to start playing setup. And we need to start playing setup basically, and we so we get this movie where Sony's like, we need to start going for every character to sort of set up the next film, to set up the next spin-off, to set up endless amounts of stuff. And you can see the remnants of it in some of the things that Sony are releasing now, like Venom and Morbius and all that. But yeah, this is very much a movie where it gets so bogged down in other things, and it has so many things going on. There's so many villains. There's so many different things happening. But if you trim some of the fat, there's a 4-star, maybe 3.5-star movie in there, I think. You know what I mean?
It's a great movie in there.
There's a great movie in there if you trim some of the fat down. I don't know how you feel about Jamie Foxx, but I think he's one of the most sympathetic villains I've ever seen in my entire life. I love that villain so much. Yeah, I love Electro. I thought Max Dillon was really well done until it sort of goes all a bit crazy at the very end. I think Max they do a great job of sympathizing with him and making the audience feel for him. I think that's great. And I remember a wee 14-year-old heart going, "Oh, I just want a friend. I'll be his friend, please."
Yeah,
it's just the epitome of the nerd. So it's like, yeah.
I don't love Electro, mainly because I understand what they're going for, and I like the loner stuff at the start. There's a scene early on where Spider-Man saves him. That is a terrific scene. That encompasses Max Dillon perfectly. You know, when he's like, "Oh my God, Spider-Man chose to save me," and then he says his name, and he's like, "Oh my," you know, he's like having a fangirl moment. I think what ruins it for me is his main reason for like switching against Spider-Man is that Spider-Man forgets him.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's so caught up in his mind about how Spider-Man's his best friend. He's creating all these fake realities in his head.
Yeah,
and I
get that. But for me,
it has a bit of a Joker moment.
Yeah, for sure. But for me, and I like that as a sort of catalyst for a villain. Yeah. And for the way they set up Max, but I just think the way they played it off.
Yeah.
I think the way they play it off, they don't give it enough time. No, it just seems like a very in a
2.5-hour movie, you should be focusing more on Electro. The Electro should have been the main villain.
Yeah.
With maybe. Because obviously they include Harry Osborn in this to become Green Goblin. They bring him out of nowhere, basically. They don't even mention him in the first film. They don't even allude to Harry Osborn at all in the first film. So you're left going, well, here's Dane DeHaan now, and Andrew, Peter and Harry go way back, and you're like, oh, right, okay. I only know this because of previous movies that aren't part of this. You know, that I know of the character.
Yeah.
So you're sitting going, well, who's this guy? Like... And it's just very odd. I think they should have trimmed some of that down.
I think what they do well is the setup for the villains. Because they do bring Harry Osborn out of nowhere. But I did like their dynamic. I think Dane DeHaan and Andrew had good chemistry in the sort of scenes where they're sort of... And I'm like, I get it. I feel the history of their friendship. They're both awkward and you know, they both sort of, you know, come together. Like that scene where they're at the beach. That scene, in fact, where Peter turns up at Harry's house and he's like, oh, I'm with people. And then, you know, they fall back into it. I really like that scene. And again, the early stuff with Mac, I'm a big fan of. I think when it comes to the villainous switch, both of them are just way too abrupt, I think, to really make me care for them as villains. Goblin's an awful villain in this.
Yeah.
It's just so unnecessary.
I hate the Green Goblin in this. I think they shouldn't have made him twist. They should have made him turn in this, and they should have done
the setup, build to it. You know,
they
did
have
a good
built
job
into the
building
third
to
film. They should have built into the third film, and they should have kept Gwen and Peter broken up, and he should have gone to MJ.
Yeah.
Because they cut. Well, I don't know if it's a little known fact, but if you don't follow Spider-Man and all that Marvel needs, Shailene Woodley was cut from this movie. She was going to play MJ. And
she filmed stuff. She filmed stuff.
Movie. There was like a 4-hour movie somewhere, but they were cut. That was like post. This was just before Fault in Our Stars, or just post Fault in Our Stars.
Just after. It was like the same year.
Yeah.
This was when Shailene Woodley was on the rise.
Yeah, and she got cut, and I think that was stupid, because I think if you had that set up and you had that was a relationship happening, and they'd both kind of semi moved on, you wouldn't need to kill MJ until a further on movie. No, you wouldn't kill Gwen until a further on movie, because obviously Gwen Stacy dies in the end of this.
But that scene is, I think, one of my favorite Spider-Man scenes. Like they handle that.
Brilliant.
They handle that
so
scene
good,
incredibly well. And I think, largely because of Andrew and Emma's chemistry, which we touched upon in the last episode.
Electric. In this movie, it steps up another notch.
Oh my God. The I Love You scene on the
how
bridge.
Good they are together in this.
Fantastic. Yeah. And Andrew's performance in that moment. Another little known fact, so obviously they were dating. Andrew and Emma were engaged. And the thing sort of...
Your wee mic thing keeps hitting off the mic, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Oh my God.
The little plastic dot. Yeah.
Obviously, little known fact, Emma and Andrew were engaged when they were sort of making this movie, and then things sort of fell apart behind closed doors, and no one really knows why. But I remember Andrew alluded to it in an interview, was because that moment felt so real to him, where he's holding Emma Stone in his hands. And I remember, I think in the interview he said, I wasn't holding Gwen, I was holding Emma in my hands. And he was like, and that was such a traumatic thing to come back from. And I think he sort of alluded to the fact that maybe played a part in it, a small part, but like, I think that, understandably,
Yeah.
And his performance just in that scene is just, incredible.
It's incredible. And you've got even smaller stuff like the break, like the beginning where they're happy together, and then sort of the breakup scene was great, and then when the rebounding and the maintenance closet, that entire sequence when he's coming out of Oscorp and she's having to sprint out and he's using the distraction is great. It's so good together. Just incredible stuff. I could go on about this movie for hours. I mean, this just the Spider-Man being Spider-Man stuff for me is enough. Like that is some of the best Spider-Man stuff you will ever get.
He really comes into his own.
Like this. Yeah. Apart from maybe the montage at the beginning of Homecoming, I don't think we've really had enough of Tom Holland Spider-Man just being Spider-Man in a New York setting. Yeah. And that's something I really, really miss. And I really like that. I really like the localness. I really like the low keyness of a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's a shame we don't get that now, but I love those sequences so much.
Because we touched upon it in the last episode when we were chatting about The Amazing Spider-Man 1. And what we said was we sort of, said the things that film does well, this just embellishes and sort of takes that to that next level. And I think that's obviously the Peter Gwen dynamic. The Spider-Man stuff is, his whole interaction with Rhino, that first sort of opening scene, it's Spider-Man ripped right out of the comics. My favorite suit. I also want to say my favorite suit in this. I love the Spidey suit.
Hands down.
It's fantastic.
So good.
They really do some great improvements. I will also say the issues with the first one are amplified here, in that it's just Sony need to get their hands out of the cookie jar. It's way too overstuffed.
Yeah.
And it's all that Sony's choice. It's all at their sort of their discretion, because they wanted to set up. They were they wanted to set up Venom. They wanted to set up Sinister Six. They wanted to set up Amazing Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 4. So much.
They wanted to set up the Aunt May solo film. Remember that?
Yes.
Do you not remember this? This was a massive story at the time.
Yes,
Aunt May was going to get a solo spin-off from her early years, basically, when she was an agent of not S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess. I don't even know what she'd have been an agent of, but yeah, it's crazy stuff. It's
also
crazy.
The stuff with the parents is just ridiculous. I mean, have you seen the deleted scene?
The deleted scene. Yeah, deleted scene in the graveyard. So after Gwen Stacy's death, Peter meets his dad out of nowhere, and then that's just sort of there. Is it canon? Was it canon at the time? Was it going to be canon? Fuck knows about that.
Way too much. Way too much. Had you stripped right? Take away Green Goblin. Introduce Harry. Yep. Okay, introduce Harry. Have that dynamic play out, but remove Green Goblin. Remove the Sinister Six setup. Remove the parent plot because they end up spending a lot of time on that.
You could have the Sinister Six setup though. I think you could still have the mysterious man or whatever. I don't even know what his name is, but the mystery man. I mean, you could have that, and you could even have the post-credit scene.
You could
even have the post-credit scene. And you have maybe the post-credit scene being Harry sort of turning into Green Goblin. I think you can have that plot where Harry's like, "I want your blood" and all that nonsense.
I think it's a good, decent plot.
And you can have that and have that set up, and you'd be like, the next one we'll deal with that.
They also had Black Cat in this. Or they were Felicity Jones set up. Yeah, Felicity Jones played Felicia.
Felicia. Yeah,
just what?
And
why?
God knows why.
She has nothing to do with it.
Obviously.
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, strip all of that setup away. Focus on the Peter and Gwen dynamic. Him being haunted by the dad. I really liked. Focus more on Electro. And you've got a great movie there. Because I really love the scene with Aunt May and Peter, where she's working like 2 jobs, and she gets really emotional. And like when he's like sort of investigating his parents a bit more. There were some really, really fantastic scenes in this movie. It's just a bit of a mess.
Yeah. She doesn't get enough love for being Aunt May. I think she's the best Aunt May out of a lot of them. She really is. I think Sally Fields does a great job of being Aunt May. Honestly,
I agree.
Like, easy stuff.
Is it?
I am also a bit upset about the Amazing Spider-Man 3 we could have got, like, because we were so, they were gonna set up Venom. They were gonna set up, they were gonna set up Eddie Brock being in it. They were gonna set up like Finn Wittrock was gonna be Eddie Brock. J. Jonah Jameson was apparently coming back.
Well, they wanted J.K. Simmons for J. Jonah Jameson, and then Sony said no.
And they got it in the end, but it's crazy that was all going to happen. You had the sort of more setup for the Sinister Six. King Goblin was going to be the main bad guy, which is a sort of like mega Green Goblin sort of situation where Norman Osborn comes back from the dead. What else you got? You got Christoph Waltz coming in to play Octavius.
Sick casting.
Octavius, because that is incredible casting.
Yeah,
and they never got it. Never happened because Sony were greedy. And that's the main.
It makes me sad because, like, say what you want about these films, but Andrew never got a complete story. And I know we were supposed to get a Spider-Man 4, and we didn't. But Tobey still had a complete arc from 1 to 3. Andrew never got that. And that makes me kind of sad because it was so much. I was so excited for a Sinister Six movie. I don't know why. But, like, 15-year-old me was so buzzing when I heard there was going to be a Sinister Six movie.
You can only hope No Way Home provides a bit of closure.
Well, I was about to ask.
That's what you kind of have to hope for.
What about these rumors that?
Before.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, what about the rumors that he might get more films after?
Well, that's what. Remember your was this on the podcast? I think it was on record, I believe, where you were telling me about your Venom theory. Yes. And I think that's a good shout maybe for some closure. If not, at least something in No Way Home that provides a sort of like, well, at least we know he's doing okay. Like, it's you know what I mean? Like, he's married or something, or he's found someone, or like or Gwen's still alive in his universe and we can just sort of rest peacefully knowing that never happened.
Because I know there were rumors floating around, and I know we need to take all these rumors with a pinch of salt, and this one especially. But it was like, this rumor was like, it was like Sony are possibly considering maybe giving Andrew and Tobey, or Andrew or Tobey, solo films depending on the success of No Way Home.
I think it's just Andrew. I think it's just Andrew who's signed something because he's been the most. I think the rumor was, because he's been so tight-lipped about it and being like, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Whereas Tobey Maguire, people have seen him on the street and he's just winking. He's like, "Are you in Spider-Man No Way Home?" And he's going, "Sure, no."
Yes.
And
no.
Andrew's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Ha ha ha. Like,
I'm not the werewolf.
This is hilarious to me.
I'm not the werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you see an Amazing Spider-Man 3 under the sort of helm of like the new Sony Marvel deal with the multiverse thrown in there? Would you?
I would watch a continuation, maybe as a Venom 2, maybe a Venom 3, or like a sort of a Spider-Man versus Venom Spider-Verse situation.
Yeah.
Because that's what they seem to be leaning into, is Venom 2, not Venom 2, but into Venom 3. I think there's supposed to be like a Venom-verse situation thing going on. I think Sony saw Spider-Verse and was like, okay, that. And it was
live
like,
action. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do all of that now. Because people like it when things merge together, synergy and all that. So it's big old corporate branding. They'll love it.
But I mean,
Great
just
times.
look at the hype for No Way Home. It's clearly working.
Yeah,
you know?
it works. It
works.
works.
Sadly,
Get Topher Grace back for Eddie Brock. Let's do it. Come on.
Yes, I would. Yeah, I think what this film lacks for me is closure, because we never got an Amazing Spider-Man 3. And it makes it frustrating to watch this with all the setup for the future that just never pays off. The ending, the Rhino ending, what the Rhino's in it for like 2 minutes.
I almost wish there was a way they could have done a positive sad ending, because I know they can't end on a sad ending because it's a studio movie. They can't end on a depressing ending. But if there was a way that they could sort of go, he's still not over it, and 3 will be about him getting over it. Do you know what I mean?
That'd been great.
Like, that would have been more interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll never get it. A rating though, what are you thinking as a rating?
I would give it 3 out of 5. I do really, really enjoy it. The parts of Amazing Spider-Man 2 that work, I think, are up there with some of the best Spider-Man content we've seen on film. When they get it right, when Mark Webb is doing his thing, man, this film flies.
When you can get out the grasp of Avi Arad, it's, you know what I mean? You can get, it's all his fault. You can blame Avi for this.
100%.
It's all his fault.
You said it earlier. There's a great film in there. And you can see that. But it's just too much of a mess to, you know, I can't love it because we just never got the closure, I think. So I would go 3 out of 5. What about you? What are you thinking?
I'm tempted to go 4, but I think that's just me being blinded by, because I remember watching this as a kid, like not a kid, but a teenager, you know what I mean? And watching this as a 14-year-old and just being blown away by it. Like I was just being like, this is so much fun. Yeah. I'm having a great time. And then obviously, as I got older, I was like, this isn't a great film, but it's one of those ones where you're like, I love this because of just the memories and like everything and all that. I'll go 3, I think, and betray myself, but just knowing that it's a beloved movie for me, I think. And I mean, Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy.
I was about to say, do we need to talk more about her? Like, I mean, come on, she's the best part of this film, realistically. Yeah. Although there's a fun connection to the Croods. Did you know?
Oh, for God's sake. If you're wondering why I laughed earlier, he sent this in the chat to try and get me to interject it into the conversation, just to let you know.
But he didn't. So I'm going to do it. So there is a fun connection between The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and the Croods. Gwen says to Spider-Man at one point in the movie.
I'll do it. I'll do it for you.
Yeah, please. I can't.
At one point in the movie, Gwen says to Spider-Man, "What are you, a caveman?" This may be a nod to Emma Stone's role in The Croods, where she plays a caveman. We found the most IMDb trivia I think we've ever found. Because that's where we go mainly for our facts that we don't know. We go and look at IMDb and we see shit like this all the time. And I honestly wish it would stop. Yeah. And next week, I believe we are talking Birdman and Magic in the Moonlight. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Yes.
We might have a couple guest stars.
Maybe some guests. Maybe
not.
Not.
Maybe not.
Maybe at least one guest. We know
I think at least one guest. Person. We know at least one person. Yeah. We might have more.
It might be. It'll be fun. I love a guest. Laura was great last time. So
yeah,
it's always a bit of fun when we get a guest in. But thank you very much for watching and listening. If you are on a podcast service, please make sure to follow and give us a rating if it does that. If you're on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and like the video. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at CamsOG. I do stuff on ohaifilms.com or the Ohio Films YouTube channel, where we review a movie every weekday. There's usually a review out. Awais, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Awais, just tweeting about movies, or on www.thefilmbite.com.
Yeah.
Gonna be doing a Spider-Man ranking, I think, in the build-up to No Way Home, so
there you go.
Look out for it.
Gotta get that SEO and all that nonsense.
Exactly, gotta get those clicks.
It's a hot topic. Gotta get those clicks in. So obviously, like we said, next week, Magic in the Moonlight and Birdman, or the Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, isn't it? That's the full title.
Something like that.
But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.